Welcome to Rollin' with Mike, podcast on wheels. My name is Mike Wilson, aka Rollin' Mike, your host. I am a writer, speaker, and disability coach, and author of a book titled Return from the Edge. 31 years ago, I was injured in a life-altering motor vehicle accident that left me as a quadriplegic. This is my story. Welcome today to the Rollin' with Mike podcast on wheels. I'm here today to interview a couple individuals I've gotten to know a little bit over the past year. Tell me a little bit about your journey. Her book's titled The Power of Perseverance, a journey of overcoming obstacles and emerging forward.
First of all, thank you, Mike, for giving me the opportunity to discuss the book and my journey. The book is truly a labor of love. I wrote it with a couple of things in mind. First, to the glory of God. Second, as a tribute to my mom, who was just such a strong Puerto Rican woman and such a role model in my life. And third, hopefully to inspire others to know that you can emerge from a place like that little poster board that's behind you. That is the little shack that I was born in Puerto Rico. And we lived there with my mom, single mom with 7 of us. My dad would come and go, and every time he left a precious child behind, but ultimately he left altogether. My mom raised us this little shack. When we lived there, those boards were, better aligned. Yeah. But there was no electricity, no running water. We lived off whatever the land produced. There was a creek in the back, which is where we got our water. And there was an outhouse in the back. It was terrifying to go in there with all the lizards and the iguanas and everything that crawled through there. But those were our conditions, and that is where I emerged from. Ultimately becoming a judge, I like to bring this message particularly to young people to know that you can emerge from a place like that if you believe in the power of God, if you have it in your heart to persevere and overcome such obstacles, and to move forward and never allow an obstacle to get in the way of your goals or your aspirations or your dreams. And so that's kind of the starting point of the story.
I can only imagine what that must have been like for all 7 of you in that single story house there. Obviously, we all know that Puerto Rico is a tropical climate, so it's warm. Yeah. You wouldn't have much trouble staying warm, but cooling off, being in the air conditioning, that would have been a challenge.
There's none of that.
There wasn't. That wasn't going to happen. So, but you say what I like is you. Number one, you give God all the glory. Number 2, your mom played a very instrumental role in raising her children. What would you say would be one of the, where you came from? How about your other siblings?
She had a dream for each of us, and all of us have done very well as far as where life has taken us. For some of my older brothers and sisters, college was not a reality for them because of the time period. Yeah. I was fortunate to be at an age where things were happening in this country that allowed me to get financial aid and grants to be able to go to college. So the 3 youngest of us were the ones that ended up with that opportunity. The other ones did not, but they mostly went on to get married, to have fruitful lives with their beautiful children. For all of us, it was about staying together and being together. So whenever one moved, we all followed. And so ultimately, we have all ended up here in Florida, except for one sister who, when she got married, went back to Puerto Rico, and that's where she still lives. So for my mom, it was about making sure that we were all going to have a path forward, that we were all going to be happy, and that we were all going to overcome this circumstance. And the one thing about her was that she would never allow poverty to define who we were. For her, it was always moving to the next step and to the next step. And so in moving forward with the story, we had an uncle, my mom's brother, who had moved to the United States, and actually most of her brothers and sisters had moved to the U.S. And he came to visit us in the little shack, and he told my mom that she really should think about moving us out of there and moving us to New York, where there were better opportunities. And at that time, my mom was working in a bead factory in Puerto Rico, making belts, and that's how she sustained the family. And my oldest sister, Carmen Delia, she was getting ready to graduate from high school. So my uncle convinced my mom that she should let my sister Carmen and his daughter Ida come back with them to the U.S. So that Carmen can start working, and it ultimately send for my mom, and ultimately send for the rest of us. And so that's how it happened. So she unfortunately did not graduate from high school, but she took on the task of moving the family forward. So she moved to New York and started working at a feather factory in New York. After making enough money, she sent for my mom and for the three youngest of us. The rest of the kids actually ended up staying with my dad until there was enough money to send for them. And eventually, they worked really hard in that factory and were able to send for all of us. Now, the sad part about the story is that, we moved to the tenement slums of New York City. So we moved from our little shack to these buildings that were just rat infested, roach infested. We had people who were addicted to drugs that would hang out at the bottom, under the staircases, kind of in the big high-rise buildings. And so it was very difficult for us. And lo and behold, not long after we had moved to New York, our building burned down. And the fire just took the little that we had. I remember the two big firefighters carrying my small brother and I down the stairs, the smoke-filled stairs, and sitting out in front of the building as they put the fire out. And I guess I was too little to really understand everything that was going on. I just knew it was not good. And after the fire, there was no place to go. So we had to move back into that building, and everything was soaked, mattresses, everything. And lucky for myself and my other little brother, one of the cousins took us in for a few nights, but my mom and my sisters and everyone else had to stay. And you could just hear my mom's, whimpers in the corner, just trying to figure out what would be the next step and how did we get from there to there. And but she has such strength of character and integrity and grit and perseverance. She was so strong. She would cry it out and then on to the next thing. The next morning she's up, she's looking for another apartment, she's continuing to work hard. And so that's how we kind of continue to persevere.
I like what you say about your mom, still even after the fact that now you moved, now you're on to a different environment. surrounded by different obstacles or different people, which could be obstacles, adversity, but still able to rise above the challenge. I know a little bit about our books are kind of similar in the fact of persevering through adversity and the challenges that face us, and life's not easy, and life will it'll throw you a curveball, but you got to adapt and overcome. In my case, a disability. In your all's case, you all came from poverty-stricken area into a different environment. Were all those siblings pretty close?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the one thing. She taught us so much love. I mean, we love each other so much. Even to this day, we're super close, and we try not to live too far from each other. And but Mike, as you say, whether it's a disability like yours or whether it's the poverty that I emerged from, it was really the power of God. I can't imagine overcoming what we did had it not been for God guiding my mom and guiding, and as you say, my older siblings, like my sister Carmen. She's a trailblazer along with my mom, and my other sisters who would care for us at home while mom worked. She was a great believer. And when I would ask her, how is it possible that you think I can become a lawyer? First of all, I didn't even know what a lawyer was. And we certainly didn't have any of those in my family. But she would always say, if you believe in the power of God and you believe that He's going to bring us forward, and if you can keep that dream in your heart, it's going to happen. And she would just continually tell us that. And so we grew up protected by God. And the streets of New York City for a bunch of young kids like we were, I mean, that it was pretty rough, and my brother would get into certain things, and I just think that we just would not have survived it had it not been that we were clothed in the protection.
You all eventually were able to become homeowners, and was that I can't recall if that was before. Was that before law school? Before you went to college, that you all became homeowners?
My mom, yes, she bought our first house where after many apartments and many trials and tribulations in New York, my one sister got married and bought a house with her husband in New Jersey. So we all got up and followed her to Jersey, and we were able, my mom was so frugal, she would put all her pennies away, and she had $3,000 for a down payment on that house on Delavan Street in New Brunswick, New Jersey, and that was our first house. My sister was fortunate to marry her husband, and they bought a house. Eventually, little by little, as things progressed, and my sisters got married, they were able to become homeowners, and of course now we have the benefit of being homeowners ourselves. Now, law school for me, when she purchased that home in New Brunswick, is when the opportunity became a reality for me to be able to go to Rutgers College. I think before getting there, what happened, how this whole dream started was that one of my sisters were taking care of us, and we were school-aged children still at home because my mom was so preoccupied with trying to survive that she didn't enroll us in school. So the government came knocking on our door one day and said, hey, you got to get these kids into school, and there's these programs that would help you, and there's this welfare where you don't have to work, that you can, care for these kids. And my mom, that was so foreign to her because she's always worked. But we had to navigate a lot of the social service agencies. And so, being kids who pick up the English language a lot quicker than my mom, she would take me to all those social service agencies to interpret for her. And that's where the dream became, that's where it formed. She would see me interpret and move my hands. And she said to me, you know, you're going to be a lawyer. And that's where it started.
Okay.
And so eventually when we moved to that house in New Brunswick, New Jersey, I was able to apply for college at Rutgers. And I got there also through the grace of God, because the Upward Bound program came into our high school and started to pull economically disadvantaged students out of non-college tracks and put us on college-bound tracks, so that I was ready and able to apply for college.
Did your mom kind of instill that in you, that, and once she said those words, it just kind of stuck with you, that this is what I really want to do?
Yeah.
Number one, I can tell you that how much you love your mom and how much she meant to you, and her wisdom and guidance seemed like they directed you.
Yes. Her dream became my passion.
Yeah.
And my passion resulted from the times that I was growing up in. I was growing up, I graduated in 1973. And so during that time period, there's a lot of social injustice. College doors were not really open to non-traditional students. And so there was a lot going on that really manifested that dream in me even more so, because I felt that I can be a change and that I could bring about change by way of becoming a lawyer. Ultimately, when I got into college, then there was this big struggle really to keep those doors open so that other students could follow in our footsteps. And so it became about social justice and about giving back to the community. And when I graduated from law school, it wasn't about going into corporate law or personal injury work or anything that would make us super rich. It was about giving back to the community, because I still had that sense in me that that's what I needed to do, and that's what my mom wanted me to be able to give back to those that have helped us along the way. And so I went to work for the Legal Services Corporation, which helps people that in civil matters that cannot afford a lawyer. And then I went to work for the Public Defender's Office, again, for people that are charged with crimes that cannot afford a lawyer. I was public servant. Okay. And the judgeship was also public service work.
Speaking from a legal aspect and helping those who are disadvantaged and don't have the funds, a disadvantage, what would you call that?
It's public interest work. It's poverty law. It's on the criminal side, it's criminal defense work. So different variations to it.
The reason why I asked that is I served on a board for 10 years for, it's called the Appalachian Center for Independent Living, and it's for those who have disabilities. So, and I was on the operations committee. I don't know why, because we had a lawyer, we had an accountant, and we had me. And I'm not quite sure where I fit in. I was in college at the time. This was just, when I moved here in 2019 is when I had to resign. But I say all that to say the lawyer we had, that's what he did. He did questions for those. He helped those with legal advice that didn't have the money, that had questions, that were working on for the state. He was well schooled and all that, and very, very very particular and very to the point, in how he almost to the point where we're like, all right, okay, we got you're speaking way above us right now. So anyhow,
it's so important.
Very.
Yeah.
I mean, it's giving back to the community that you live in. There's 5 different kind of environments. I like to say living, learning, working, social, spiritual. And we find ourselves in one of those environments, at all times, and they change too depending on where we're at the time, but that moving forward, I know in here with Rutgers University, can you, I guess, describe a little bit about your journey through Rutgers and what the programs that they had?
My college years were some of the best years of my life.
Yeah.
I met my husband, Jerry, who's sitting right here with me.
Yeah.
We've been married now for 40 years, together for 47 years, and we met at Rutgers College. So that was the big bonus from college. So it was comfortable because I was surrounded with people like Jerry and students that had come in that shared my background. CLEO is a Council for Legal Opportunity, something along those lines. I can't remember exactly. But that was a program designed to look at the students that were in different colleges and look at our potential to see if we were law school material. I was admitted into the programs, went one summer at North Carolina before law school. They really helped to explain to you how you get into law school and what's involved in law school. I mean, I think college was an easier transition for me. Maybe there were so few of us in law school that had my kind of background. Law school was a traditionally male-oriented profession, and it was during those years that women started to get admitted into the law school. So it was a little scary and difficult. I mean, law school is extremely difficult, especially the first year. It's like a weeding process. I always felt that education was the great equalizer. I felt that I needed to put in the work to just put my nose to the grind and study really hard. And sometimes the expectations for students like myself was far greater to see if we were going to make it. And I was determined to make sure that I was going to make it. And so I did. So when I graduated from law school in 1980, Rutgers Newark, and my whole family was there. My mom was there. And it was the greatest feeling of accomplishment. And it was the type of pride that's not like an in-your-face kind of pride.
How much different was that feeling of accomplishment than in your book, the chapter 11 titled Winning the Judicial Election? And so how would you compare those two? Or
I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would even go to college or law school or ultimately become a lawyer and then a judge. The journey to the bench was an interesting one because, well, in Florida, you get to become a judge one of two ways. Either you are appointed by the governor or you run a judicial election and you get voted into the position. So I was appointed by the governor after 9 tries. Talk about perseverance. I've never given up on my whole perseverance thing. If I fail once, I keep going.
I love that.
And
I really love that.
So after the 9th try of going through the judicial appointment process and getting appointed by the governor, I couldn't believe when the call came in offering me the judgeship. And once I became a judge, you next go to the investiture, and the investiture is when you get invested into your role as a judge. And that was mind-blowing.
From our meeting back in our college days, we did have a faith base where we knew that we were together, but yet we had something else more special, and it's our faith in our Lord and giving back to Him. And at that early age, as I look back, and I've been her biggest cheerleader, but I always knew that God had someone for me, and I just embraced it from that moment and allowed that to happen. And as I took this journey with her, and I see as she describes in her book. I'm chapter 7, page 31, the college years. Yes, those are the years that you kind of try to figure things out, in college. And so as she went forward with her education and moved on, as she shared, I always knew deep inside that these walls will always be around us. But time after time, she found a key to open that door. And it was not only for her, but it was to give back to the community, to all those other children, families across the board. So when she shares her story, or in the book, or when she speaks like in these kind of formats, she's opening other doors to let other families and friends know that they too can make it. And thank God I've just been blessed to be part of this journey.
The college years are formidable years, and where you, like you said, you figure things out, and so lots of speed bumps and roadblocks along the way, but you learn to either, as Michael Jordan, as I said in my book, he said he came up to a wall, either figured out if you couldn't go through it, are you going to go around it, which way are you going to go around it, above it or under it, or are you going to find a way to just break through it? And so I think embracing change and embracing each other and the power of perseverance is such a vital key to success. There's so many distractions now in today's world. We have technology like we've never seen it before, and some of those things are obviously they're growing pains. And how do we overcome those? I know how long has it been now since you retired?
It's been about a little over 2 years, almost 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you see a side of technology when it started to, as we started to get into the social media age?
Mostly growing pains, but overall, social media and the technology that we've utilized, Zoom has become a wonderful technology. And as we were going through COVID with the courts, Zoom really helped to still have people come to court by way of Zoom. So yes, I mean, there's just pros and cons to both. But yeah, that was a challenge. Now for our children, and we have 2 beautiful children, Natasha, who's 38, and Armani, who's 28, and we have a little one in heaven who was stillborn, Tiana. They manage it so well, and they too have become leaders in their own communities.
Becoming a leader and giving back to the community, the role of faith and the gift of family. These are all chapters in case anyone would like to purchase a copy of the book. Where can you go?
Right now, the best place to purchase it is Amazon. We do speaking engagements, and then we bring the books with us, and we sell the books directly. I do have a Facebook page called Perseverance Author Miriam Irizarry. That's the Facebook page. Through iMessage, people can send me messages if they would like to order the book. And email, certainly, my email address is irizarryjm@aol.com, and that's irizarryjm@aol.com. That's another way to be able to reach me.
You and I use the same ghostwriter, Eli.
Sure,
Gonzalez. He very
amazing. Eli Gonzalez, yes.
He I know I enjoyed the experience of working with him and the 2 writers that I had along the way. 78 or 87% of people have an idea of always writing a book somewhere down the road in their life. They think, "Oh, I'd love to write a book about my story," and we all have something to give back. But how instrumental was that for you?
I wrote my own book, and I held it very close to the vest for a long time. I was afraid to just give it to just anyone.
Yeah.
So again, through the grace of God, I met Eli Gonzalez. I was speaking at an event, and he heard my story, and he came up to me and he said, "Hey, if you're interested in writing your book, here's my card." And so that's how I got to meet Eli, so Eli will either write your story for you as a ghostwriter, or he will take a book like mine that was already written and edited for you, and help you to get you to the printing stage, which was amazing. I started working with him in January, and by March the book had been published. So he is amazing. And the ultimate gift too was meeting writers like you, Mike. He introduced us to each other, to all of the writers that were there at our kickoff, and all of us have something so special to tell. Your story is so inspirational and so special, and he has a knack for people that have that type of inspirational story to tell that come to him. So so that was our way to be able to publish our 2 books, you and I.
That was a great moment. 5 of us at the Barnes & Noble this past March, about 8 months ago, where we had our book signing here in Carrollwood, right outside of Tampa, Florida. That was a special moment, and I know you all enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
That's great.
So, well, I appreciate you being on the show today. It's been my pleasure. Please think about buying a copy of her book, The Power of Perseverance. When people say to me, "What did you do? How did you get through it?" Well, I just did what was next. Then I did what was next. Then I did what was next. I found that easier than looking at a whole big picture of how do I get from point A to point Z. You can purchase a copy of it as well on Amazon, like she was discussing too. Thank you for being on here.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Jerry.
Such an inspiration.
I appreciate I appreciate that. One final question for Jerry. You both were very well educated, and you both held prestigious positions here in the community. What's it been like in the retirement years, finding things to keep you motivated? I know that you're not dead yet. You still have a lot left to give. So.
I'm looking for my cell phone because the first thing I do is turn it on and show you the picture of our first grandson, Isaiah. He's 2.5 now. And, when God gives you another blessing, and this is our blessing now in retirement, to spend this time with our first grandson and our children and family, and seeing their children and their grandchildren. So the blessings keep coming to each family, but ultimately as a community, I thank God and give all glory, as Miriam says in her book, in her first page, that, without God in our lives, it's like a complete inner peace that I feel. So I just want to share that inner peace with everyone during these holidays. And thank you, Mike, for having us.